Hello, hello. Be awesome at facility management listeners, viewers, followers, subscribers. This is episode 23 on the first day of the new fiscal year for public education and government. And this is episode 23. And my name is Joshua Peach, and I am joined by Mr. None other than What House Are You In Today? Co-host extraordinaire Paul Anastasi.
I'm broadcasting from the Hampton Beach Studios today.
Good stuff. Looking good. You always, you know what you do? You always put me in a weird place because you set your camera up in different walls, backgrounds, and other things. The only one that's consistent is the grandkids' paintings at your main house.
When I'm home in Watertown,
in Watertown. So we've got a good one today. I asked a favor from a friend that wanted to talk to him about something that's really cool that happens in the state of Wisconsin every summer with custodial workshops. And for those of you that haven't traveled Wisconsin, it's a big state. Like if you're in Massachusetts or Rhode Island or Connecticut, you could travel the length of the state. In some cases, that's just how they're just going grocery shopping. It's big. And so I asked a past guest and good friend, Mr. John Stangler, to join us. So sitting in the middle tile, Mr. Stangler, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're happy to have you because I want to learn. So I wanted this episode for selfish reasons because I've been fortunate enough to be asked to deliver keynotes at 2 of the 4 events. Yes. And I don't know much about it. So this is actually going to be an educational for me. So talk about, summertime in Wisconsin and these events and how it, give us a little background and a little understanding what they are.
All right. Well, the first thing is it's underneath the WASBO umbrella. So it's the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials. And from the custodial maintenance standpoint, we have a lot of great other conferences throughout the school year, the Facility Management Conference, the Midwest Facility Masters Conference. But during the summer, there's a lot of people that we can't necessarily get out of our building during the school year. Mm-hmm. So we try to offer professional development opportunities for custodial maintenance people throughout the state. And it's evolved over time. I know it's been in place for a long time, but I would say about 10 years ago where there was only 2 conferences. There'd be a northern one and there'd be a southern Wisconsin one. And if you're up in northern Wisconsin, people travel a lot farther and the school districts are a lot more separated. And if you're in, say, southeastern Wisconsin, it's a lot more dense. So there's a tremendous amount of school districts in southeastern Wisconsin. So it's evolved from having another north and south conference. And then I'd say 5 or 6 years ago, it's evolved to the point where we have 4 conferences. So we kind of separate the state, kind of almost divided down the middle, and then across the sector, almost like Highway 21 or Highway 29 going across the state where, all right, north and south. So we've offered 4 custodial maintenance conferences throughout the state for people to attend. And they fairly get quite, there's some really good attendance at these conferences. Some of the northern ones, all right, I was just up in Crivets and Cameron over the last 2 weeks, and there's probably about 150 at each of those conferences. Mm-hmm. Holman on July 13th, there'll be a tremendous amount up there. I'm sure they'll get at least 250 in Holman. And then Tomorrow River, which is up in Amherst, kind of just east of Stevens Point. That will be on July 20th. And I'm sure they'll have great attendance there. And then the southeastern Wisconsin, I'm actually hosting on the July 27th here in Pewaukee. So we're hosting the southeastern one. And last year, there's about probably 350 in attendance for the southeastern one. And my goal this year is to try and push 400 and have 400 attendees. And this goes all across the board. So you'll have, new time, current facility managers, directors. You're going to have, say, some summer seasonal employees. You're going to have some part-timers. You're going to have some full-time staff. You're going to have other custodians throughout districts. You're also going to have maintenance people there. So, and then I also look at, there's a great amount of vendors. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of vendors at each of these. I know my conference alone, I know there's at least 24 vendors that are signed up to, have a booth and or participate in the module sessions or, professional development opportunities where they're either teaching a class or demonstrating a product, showing off the new paint or showing off their turf equipment, whatever it may be. So we have a lot of the great vendor involvement as well. But so between all of those people benefit by having these professional development opportunities throughout the state of Wisconsin.
So do
Yeah,
the
that's
vendors typically go to all four, or is it they?
Sometimes you will see some of the vendors go to all four of the conferences. Sometimes, they might have their, target market is Southern Wisconsin. So they're probably only going to go to the two Southern conferences.
Mhm,
Sometimes a couple of vendors might be only, up in the North area and hey, they don't have an office down here in Southern Wisconsin. So they might just go to the top ones.
mhm,
But there are a lot of vendors that really market and share and do a great job throughout the state. So there's a lot of great contributors and a lot of great partners that our school districts have partnerships with, where they're able to benefit by going to all the conferences, being a great representer of their business, and just being able to offer their unique skills and abilities, and what they offer from a business standpoint.
so John, this is over multiple days.
Yep, multiple days. Typically, it's middle of the week. So all the conferences this year are ended up being on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
A little easier for travel standpoint. They're day conferences, so they start, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'll go to about 3:30. So, and if you're traveling a longer distance, where we have some people that are going to be going to all the conferences to knock out all the facility management certification sessions.
mhm.
So, some people will spend a night overnight, either on the front end or back end, just depending upon how far away it is from them and, where they're going.
So it's amazing to me. I mean, the numbers are staggering compared to what we're trying to do here in Mass. But tell me about the early years. Tell me about, year one, year two. What was the atmosphere? What was the demeanor of the staff?
I would say the atmosphere hasn't changed too much. Even from when I was a seasonal employee and participating, in my first few years as a facility manager 15, 16 years ago, I don't feel that it's changed too much. I just think there's a lot more involvement. There's a lot more vendor participation. And I think professional development is just being appreciated more. And also, I'd say it's required to be up to date in order to be as effective as you possibly can be as a facility manager and or a representative in the school. I think it's critical to receive that professional development and just continue to get better at your craft. So I think I don't think it's changed dramatically. I'd say there's still some of the same general sessions,
Right.
but we really just try to stay up to date. And the same thing even goes for the facility management certification sessions. There's 8 modules. And every few years, there's a committee that updates that certification program to make it as effective and popular as possible to make sure it's current. A couple years ago, we ended up adding crucial conversations. We added real world business ethics, and now we've started to push that. How to retain, rehire, retrain your existing staff. With the labor issues that are out there right now, the program's kind of evolved. So we definitely see that program evolving where we're just trying to stay up to date. So I would say from the early years to now, I just say a much higher participation, greater involvement. And I just look at most of that professional development has become more refined, more in touch with what's going on. And we just try to stay up to date on the current topics and current
And
issues regarding
you have
facility management.
you have custodians and maintenance force there.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh, yes, without a doubt. There are a lot of districts that, hey, you know what? I can afford to send it. It is very affordable. Right now, it is $30 for a full day of professional development, $30 per participant. So it could be very affordable for a district to send, hey, I'm going to send 10 people to that. Like, that's only $300.
Yeah.
Where else could you go for such great, valuable professional development for that cheap? And I look for some of these larger districts that can afford to send some of their people during the summer more from a time commitment, not necessarily the number, not the money. It's about, hey, you know what? I can take one day, focus on professional development. I can send my crew 45 minutes away to receive this valuable professional development. And you know what? What they're going to get out of that one day of professional development is going to be, tenfold when they come back to my district and help us make a better department, a better district, you name it. And I also look at, it's evolved over time where, I guarantee you're going to probably get to this question, so I might as well answer it as we roll, is how are the schools selected? How are the sites selected?
Yeah.
A lot of times, we're always trying to look for the latest and greatest. So most of the time, most of the conferences are all at new buildings, whether it be an elementary school, a new high school, a new middle school. A lot of them have unique things that they get to show off and highlight. So if someone has a new solar, like, oh, hey, all right, you know what? They're on the docket next year. So a lot of new buildings end up being selected just because, it's a great opportunity, one, to show off and showcase our facility, but then two, for any participants to come and learn about the new buildings and, hey, what are they doing? What are they changing with flooring types? What are they changing with roof systems? What are they changing with playgrounds? What are they changing with asphalt outside? What are they doing with turf? So really, it's a great opportunity for us to go out and, I personally love it because I get to go check out a new building. I'm like, oh, they got a new high school. I'm gonna go check that out.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we offer building tours as part of our, as part of our sessions, just so they can, hey, here you go. We can showcase the building. This is why we did it. This is what we had. This is what our referendum supported, and and this is what our community supported. So it definitely enables a lot of districts just to be able to showcase and highlight their facilities.
Yeah.
I love the rotating and moving around. I think that the Northern New England Facility Masters Conference, Paul, when we look back at that and going into what we did, 2008 was the first year of it. And we used to say, let's do a year or two at every school and then move because we didn't want to overstay our welcome. And now we look, 16, 17 years later, we've been to 8 or 9 different school buildings that were all different. And, the piece to that we didn't even realize is that we were going to get an in-depth understanding of other spaces. It was, we didn't really think about it back then.
And I think that the personnel that you're serving, for so long we're just forgotten. The custodians, the maintenance guys, and they themselves didn't believe in themselves. They didn't believe that they were the professionals. They didn't believe that how much they affected the day-to-day in the schools. And to do this, I noticed that when we did it in Mass, we're only a handful of years in. We're much younger in the process. But the first year is like, when you ask the guys, why are you here? Because my boss sent me.
Right.
That was the first volley. But then after year 2 and year 3, it's like they're coming back. They're looking for the coffee and the break, and they're seeing guys from other communities that they haven't seen in a year, and all of a sudden it's like they've got their own camaraderie with guys from across the state. And it's just, it's things that as facilities managers we've experienced for years, but they never got to do that at their level down with the custodians and the maintenance guys. They felt forgotten. We forgot about them, and now it's time to let them shine, bring them up.
Yeah, and it really goes back to the school districts too. Sorry, nice shirt, right?
Nice shirt.
And it really goes back to schools and how much they value the professional development. I'd say post-pandemic here where, all right, it's time to re-educate. It's time to retrain. In some of these aspects, we need to retrain our staff on how to be as effective as possible in their positions. So what better way for a school district to show they appreciate and, appreciate their custodial maintenance staff is by sending them to a conference. And, these are day-long conferences. So it's not like you're taking them out of the district for 3 days or 4 days, a week. You're just trying to offer one solid day of professional development. And I don't think that's too much to ask to be able to send, hey, you can send your entire department or, hey, as many people as you can to gain this knowledge.
Yeah. I'll tell you when you're saying all this stuff and we talk about, the importance of training and the custodian, when the first time they come, it's my boss told me to, it's because a lot of them, I was just sitting here going, show me something and why we do the unsung heroes of the facilities and custodial, Paul, right? It's like, show me a movie where a custodian is put in a good light, right? Yeah. Look at the maintenance shop in Good Will Hunting, the custodian and the Breakfast Club. I am the eyes and ears of this institution, my friends. Like that's about as close to it as you get, is understanding the power of the custodian, which they are. They're the key holders. They're the key holders.
They're the role models.
They're the therapists that sit on the curb with the kid that had the parents that didn't pick them up. They're the eyes, and they are the eyes and the ears of the school of everything that's going on. They could tell you if Sally or Johnny's not having a good day. They could tell you all this stuff, but they don't realize it and they don't see it. And when you look up, I put custodian and Google switch it to how to become a janitor via Indeed. Get a high school diploma or equivalent. You typically need a high school diploma or GED. to become a janitor, undergo training. Most of the training you'll receive will be on the job, gain experience, and then earn technical certifications. Number 4 is something that's typically lost after they get trained on the job and they just say, okay, this is my job. This is what I do. I come in every day and here's my routine. Here's my practice, and some things come out of it, but not a lot to where they think that they need to understand much. Not a lot changes in their world. But as we know, even just handling bloodborne pathogens and other things that they're responsible for, those processes do change, and they do need to keep up to date with them and get certifications. You hit on, and I want to talk about CEU credits, but Paul, before I get away from that, I don't know how much I've shared with you about WASBO. I've got a long history with that WASBO. I'm actually very, very lucky. I consider myself lucky to serve on. I've served on a couple of committees. I'm on one right now with them. They're just an amazing organization. ASBOs as a whole are great, but Wisconsin's unique because they don't have a building and grounds or school plant manager or an association established for K-12, and WASBO's taken that under their arm. And they do a facility masters event like Northern New England, but it's huge. It's 400 plus people at the Kalahari in Wisconsin Dells. That's in November. Then they do a facility, and that facility masters conference is open to six or so states: Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri comes. They get 5-6 states that come and represent for that for a 2-day event. And then they have a Wisconsin only facility event every February that butts up against the Safety and Security Association event. So they do a lot for not just facilities, for every operational side of the house: transportation, food services, business officials, everybody. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine, and they do a great job recruiting. John's a director of facilities at a school district, and this guy is everywhere, and he presents at every event, and it doesn't force him to, because I think he would do it anyway. But it keeps his saw sharp as to what's going on in the world. Like he said, I get excited to go to every event, so I get to go see all these schools and see what the latest and greatest is. So the byproduct of what's going on here is that the committees and the people involved, they're raising their bar and their game as to how they do things and how much better they are. So it's really pretty powerful. But with that, you said something about credits. Is there a requirement? I don't know this. I've been working with you guys forever. Is there a requirement for certification, hours every year for a facility director or custodian? Do you have to have so many?
Not required, but to maintain your certification. So okay. The facility management certification program consists of 8 modules. It's 32 different sessions, and most conferences offer at least 4 of those sessions or 1 module.
Okay.
And over the course of 3 years, you need to have, I believe, 12 hours of credits to maintain your certification. And a lot of times, if you go to 1 or 2 conferences a year, all right, you easily maintain your certification. So we have a lot of other continuing education sessions as well, in addition to those 32 sessions that a lot of facility managers attend. And a lot of times it just evolves around national events or what's going on. And hey, all right, we're going to present on this topic because it's the latest and greatest. So it'll be, count towards continuing education credits. But over the course of 3 years, it's very easy for someone to maintain their certification. Regarding the certification program itself, though, it is backed by DPI. So it is a full certification. I have actually on the wall right here where it's backed by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. So It is an accredited certification program that is utilized throughout the state. And a lot of times it's a prerequisite on applications and resumes. So when there's a position available out there, well, a lot of times they're going to ask for someone with a certification, or at least someone going through the certification program, in order to have them as your main facility manager, director, you name it. But a lot of times it's becoming a prerequisite within your position in order to be effective in the position.
So all the courses don't give you certificate. Like, so if I were to do a course out there, you wouldn't get necessarily a certification hour.
No, there's what was backed by DPI initially was it's 32. Well, it used to be, I believe, 28 or 30, and now it's bumped up to 32, where, all right, here's the basic, all this stuff that you need to know in order to be a facility manager. So there's 8 different modules that, everyone will go through in order to gain their certification first. And then, all right, to maintain, you can kind of pick and choose because most of them are continuing education or have the ability to be continuing education.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's a man. And do you work with local colleges and upper education, people that would put on stuff for you?
Not as much with not as much with the colleges. That is kind of an opportunity. I know, like, say, our local tech college as well, they have a facility manager, degree, but we haven't really tapped into the college market as much. But it could be a unique opportunity going forward, though.
Yeah, because we're looking here in Mass. We have such a shortage of facilities managers. We've like the whole industry aged out at the same time. Everybody picked up and left right around COVID and retired, and we're having such a struggle of getting people in those seats. And we've put it on the bulletin boards at the Wentworth Institute of Technology, Mass Maritime, and places like that. That we're looking everywhere we can. We're looking at Roxbury Community College, who now has a facilities course, and it's just a struggle to get a feeder program, for lack of better words, to get facilities managers coming in at ground level. We're just struggling.
Yeah, recruitment's tough.
Yeah,
it really is.
The damn boomers do it every time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we're done.
Well, I mean, but you have 20 plus years of this. Like, I mean, when we talk about, like, I'm not a statistician person that knows all the numbers and everything, but when you have the largest population of births being the baby boomers and the lowest populations of births being the Gen Xers, being me, there's going to be a gap there, right? There's going to be a skill gap no matter what. And then you have the millennials, which have to catch up to get in those positions and want to get in those seats, and a lot of them don't. So, it's rebuilding that. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the Voc Tech schools building better, not just trades, students as tradespeople, but as students as potentially coming out of high school and going to a community, like building the foundation as a leader for them to come out and not necessarily be an electrician, but be able to become a facility director? Do you think that's possible, or you think a 20-year-old after 2 years of community college is too young? Because you said Roxbury Community College.
A good candidate to bring into a number 2 position, an assistant, someone who you can groom into the position. I think the tech schools, if we worked with them to, because I'll be honest, when I'm looking at candidates, if I've got someone that knows which end of the screwdriver to hold, I'm focusing on that person. That's someone that knows the tools, knows what's going on around them. And so if we could take their knowledge in the trades and add a little to that, I'd bring someone in as a number 2, as an assistant, someone working in the summers. There's got to be a way for us to garnish those kids coming out of that level.
Yeah, and some of those kids that are coming out just expect like, I want to be a boss. I'm like, hold on.
No, you don't.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying you need experience, but you can't just be a boss from day one and expect to, we don't all know it all. I'll gladly say I don't know it all, but you know what? I'm going to try and learn the best of my ability in order to be, as effective as I can be, but I'm never going to know it all. But at the same point, it's really kind of training, recruiting, and coaching. I think a lot of so much of it's just coaching and like, hey, that's what we try to do. I've tried to use it as a feeder with my operations supervisor position as well, where I just continue, it might be a turnover every 2 to 3 years, but I'm training the next batch of facility directors.
Right.
So I'm trying, I'm doing my best to try and train the next batch where, all right, every, 2 to 5 years, I'm going to produce a new facility manager that's going to be effective around the state.
Yeah. It's funny when you say that with, I want to be the boss. I was just I talk to young sales leaders, especially ones that I've gotten to know over the years, that I watched them grow from an entry level, robo dialer to now leading teams, or even there's one that's a vice president of sales. And I talked to him the other day, and he said, what do you think about, being a sales leader? I said, I wanted it for so long, and when I got it, I couldn't wait to get rid of it. And he says, what? I said, you think that sitting in that big chair and being in meetings and talking about all the great things your team is doing is great. There's a huge responsibility, and you're also responsible for every mouth that gets fed beneath you. And sometimes those people that you take care of they don't pay attention to the mouths that they need to feed and the things that they have to do. And then you're taking all those different roles and everything else. It's tough. So, working people up and getting people up. I mean, the biggest challenge, Paul, is, getting that number one person to have a number two.
Right.
Right. That's where we're, where we're bouncing our heads off the wall. That's why I'm saying, is it possible to build programs with folk tech schools where they're not just learning which end of the screwdriver, but also learning leadership? Like, should there be, I believe there should be, I believe that I think schools are upside down. I think schools are public schools, as far as preparing our kids, it needs real world classes. It needs, more classes on being a good person, being a good leader, managing, understanding what business is. What do you want to be when you grow up? Like career pathing. Like, think about career pathing right now for every age. It's just not there.
And meaningful, the stuff that coming out of high school, some of the public high schools, their big thing is the number of the percentage that they put into colleges. They focus on that big number. Well, let's go back year 2 or year 3 after that graduating class and see how many is still there.
Right.
You pushed them to that level, but they might end up coming back and being a plumber, which is great. That's what we need.
Right. Well, that's it. Well, understanding that, like, again, that's just what you just said. It's a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
We get put on a conveyor belt at birth that doesn't stop until we're in our 20s. And then we get into the next conveyor belt, which is called our career. And that stops around 65. And then some of us retire, not you.
Yes.
But like, it's really, it's like, just push the person to the next thing, push the person to the next thing. And it's like, stop and think about, what is it we want to do? Like, I believe that every student should be taught what a school district really is. Like, there should be a 1 hour, once a quarter, all hands on deck class for at least the high school. Like, think about this. How many students know who the business manager is in a school district?
Right.
Probably not a lot.
And what
a lot
they
of them
do,
probably don't even know who the superintendent is. They probably don't even know what the superintendent does, other than they're the boss.
Right. How do the bills get paid? How does the heat get turned on? Who buys
all the moving pieces? All the moving pieces, right? I was just talking to Albuquerque Public Schools. I'm going to be talking to their staff this month, and I was talking to them yesterday about planning and the schedule. And I said, look, when I hit the ground, I'm going to have my boots on, because the director of facilities down there, John Dufay. John, if you're not hooked up with him, Paul, I think you are. You've met him at the events that we used to go to in Myrtle Beach. John Dufay is hands down one of the best facility directors in the country. And so I said, when I touch down, I got my work boots on. I want to do a day in the life of John Dufay. And he's like, we're going to go to the transportation depot. We're going to go here. We're going to go to this building. I'm going to show you this. And he's like all excited. Right. I think that there should be more engagement where John Dufay can do stuff with the kids, where he can show the stuff that he does, because it's really cool and meaningful, and nobody knows about it until after they're gone. And then someone says, hey, you might be a good facility director. You might be a good custodial supervisor. You might be a good whatever. I just think we need to educate them more, because if you don't know, you're not interested, right? It's like trying to get my kid to try to have ketchup when he says he doesn't like it. He's never tried it. How do you know you don't like it? You don't know. Right. Exactly. That's why I put ketchup in his pizza.
Well, and to get to your, future ready, we really just need to make sure they're future ready. Yeah. Some will go to college, some will go to 4 years, some will go to 2 years, some won't go, and that's okay. Yeah. But we need to make sure they're future ready when when they step out the door after graduation and, ready to be a valuable citizen. Yeah. I also look at some of those mentorship opportunities of, like, we have a great insight program here where almost all of our students, we're working at getting them all, but they all receive, or at least have some mentorship of a program or something that they plan to do after high school. So they get to receive I wouldn't say an internship, but they receive a mentorship for a semester of a field they're interested in before they graduate. So they can see, like, oh, you know what? Oh, this is right up my alley. Or, you know what? After seeing someone in the field and this is not what's, it's not it for me, but at least they're able to know that before they walk out the door in high school. So I look at what other valuable opportunities can we provide to juniors and seniors to just better prepare them for the real world after high school.
Yeah.
Do you invite students to go to the custodial workshops?
I have students part of it. They're not going to necessarily attend the sessions. I do have students because, again, going back to the Future Ready and our graduate profile, it's, student centered. Everything we do is run student centered. So I'm going to have students provide the tours. Students will actually be providing the tours at my conference. I also plan to have a couple students involved within the conference, but just not necessarily as attendees. But that is a great question. I might want to push a couple of
Yeah,
students as attendees.
Paul, I think we've talked about this on an episode.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, there were two kids that they started when they were sophomores or juniors, but they did their community service or they did their work study with the custodians. I think one of them ended up being a custodian and getting into facilities.
Yeah, I hired summer kids when I both in Watertown and in Newton when I had those jobs that would work with my custodians.
I think that'd just be cool. And I mean, when you talk about, I didn't realize how inexpensive your breakfast, lunch, and seat time costs more than $30.
So, well, and a couple of these places like Tomorrow's River hosted, I believe, 2 years ago, and people are still talking about the pig roast they had up there.
Yeah.
And he's doing another pig roast again this year. So Robert Smith is, some of these places just have it going on. Last year, I know Muskego had a great lunch, and, we're trying to offer a few different options here too to try and compete with the pig roast that Robert has up there. So,
no, I mean, I'm going to miss the pig roast. So I'm going to encourage you to beat the pig roast because I love pig roasts. So
I can tell you about a mentorship myself that just blew up in my face with my own son, my oldest boy. When he was in high school, I brought him to a local lumberyard, friend of mine, actually who I'm lifelong friends. He was the yard boss. He was overseeing this very large lumberyard. And I said, I not only want you to hire my son for the summer, I want you to give him every crap job in this lumberyard. Because I don't want him to work in a lumberyard all his life. I want him to see that there are better things and you're going to move up and you're not going to be in the lumberyard. So he said, no problem. So my kid gets the job. He goes to work. I waited 2, maybe 3 weeks into the summer. And I said, so how's the job going? He said, Dad, it's great. The coffee truck shows up at 9:30 and he's got buffalo wings. He said, on Fridays, he'll cash my check and I can bet the college football games if I want. Yep. He said, this is the best job I ever had. So I guess that blew up in my face.
Yep.
That didn't work. So he ended up, you talk about, people going through public schools. I have 3 children, all went through Watertown Public Schools. My oldest son ended up going to a 2-year associate's degree for construction. He's now a captain on the fire department in Watertown, which the construction led into fire science. And, when the houses are burning, you need to know how they're built, and that all works together. My daughter was a student athlete. She went to University of New Hampshire on a scholarship to play field hockey. 4 years there. She got her graduate degree, and she's teaching a full autism class back in Watertown. And my youngest son, who was probably the most go-getter out of the 3, when I said, you need to go to college, he said, I can't take 4 years out of my cash flow. He said, because I'm doing too much now. And he was working in the pizza shop. He was working here. He was working there. And so he didn't go to college. And now he's a regional manager for Petco, who travels all over New England and the states here. So I gave them 3 totally different kids. They all took 3 totally different paths, and they're all successful.
Yeah.
So it's I don't want to hear public school, private school. This.
Oh no, it's not about public or private. It's just we need to want to better equip these kids. I think it's not just taking them and putting them through class. And I think a lot of what we're seeing is it's just a challenge. Like it's kids are tougher, parents are tougher.
Yeah.
The environment is tougher, and just the way that we do things is different. I was, the majority of my schooling, and I think a lot of people look at school as like the babysitter time, for the first couple of years. It's kind of like people getting upset about, well, why isn't it full day kindergarten? And I get it. That if you get both parents working, like the education institution itself has not changed since the beginning of education, and the world we live in has changed dramatically. Like from when I was in school in the 80s and 90s, people were married. they stayed together, right? And in many cases, it was the father worked and the mother didn't, and then it started to transition. And now, just about everywhere, for you to be able to survive, right now, and they just did a report in Massachusetts, for you to be able to, be able to afford to live in the Boston area, you have to make $181,000 a year if you were to move.
Yeah.
That's a lot of dough.
And that's why they get mad when we call a snow day,
Right?
because someone's got to leave work to take care of the kids.
Right.
You know,
Well, COVID was the greatest thing in the world because work from anywhere happened.
Right.
And so they don't want to go back to the office and go back to doing these things because they're able to save money on things like childcare and other things. So, my feeling on this whole thing is we kind of need to look at, the education as a whole, and what do we want to educate these kids? What do we want to prepare them for? And my feeling is we've been preparing kids to go to college. Like I went to community college and I had to test in, which I was amazed at because I thought you just had to apply and you got in. But when I was in high school for 5 years, you had everyone was pushing, what college are you going to go to? What college are you going to go? Where are you going to tour to college? And I don't think that's like we're talking about. That's not that's not the end game. Like you go to high school to get you to college so that the college can be responsible to help you figure out where you grow up.
And you slipped that in there. You went to high school for 5 years. It was a 4-year high school, right?
It was just 5 years. Yeah. Yeah. Lunch was still cheap, but no, but what I was trying to say is I think that the public K-12 group probably we want to look at how do we better prepare our kids for when they get out, when they're done with high school, so that they can go to these other jobs and not have to worry about college as much and be more street savvy and understanding what's out there. Yeah. Right. Because there's a lot out there. So no, I'm a product of public school, and I'm glad I went. I think it fit me. I think it fit me just fine. I liked it a lot, and that's why I stayed an extra year, among other reasons.
That's
among
not why
other reasons.
Yeah.
Why I stayed another year is a story for another episode.
A whole episode in its own.
Yeah, whole nother episode. But Paul, two of your kids are in public sector work. I don't think it's a coincidence that you're in public sector work. I don't think that there's a coincidence that 2/3 of your kids are doing something in line with what you did, getting their paycheck from the same people in essence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a coincidence at all. And when I kicked myself, I should have been the firefighter. I told my son, I says, think about it. You got to trade and you work, 24 hours on and 3 days off. You can make a whole nother career. You're going to have 2 careers at the same time, get your benefits from one and keep the other one going too.
My buddy Chris that built you can't see the flag behind me, but the Shoveltown flag. Yeah. He's a full-time firefighter. He works 24 hours, gets a day off, works another 24 hours, and then gets 3-4 days off, and he makes Shoveltown flags in his free time. Yeah, so absolutely. Well, I gave you a good idea, John, having kids come, inviting students. I think that's a worthwhile, gig. I'm seeing more career days happening at schools. I don't know if you have them at your school. I'm assuming you do, but
we have designated professional development days. So we're not actually taking teachers out of the classroom. So we have 5 or 6 designated professional development days for all of our staff. And then say from a custodial maintenance staff standpoint, I take 2 of those days and provide professional development. That's and then great. Also during the summer, I designate a whole day towards professional development with our annual training, and then we feed them as well. So I don't know. Yeah. I just look at the value. There's so many great benefits by just, training them.
Yeah. Well, our technical support from last week, David Young, put a comment. Great discussion as usual. I think we might even get good workers from the special needs classrooms. We'll need some direction, but good workers. David, spot on. We've actually had some folks from Pride Industries where they have 12,000 employees. Paul, is that what the number was? Yeah. They get 12,000 employees that all have different special needs, diverse abilities that they employ for all different roles and title types, whether it's in food service, maintenance, custodial, and they actually get them certifications and licensures in some of those skilled trades. So yeah, they're doing it. Pride Industries, that's their whole business. That's their entire.
There's some other student work programs that are available too. There's a few districts around us. One that I used to be with, where there's student worker programs. So we, you have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there's a group of students that clean, and then Tuesday, Thursday, there's a group of students that clean in some of these districts. So it's trying to be creative on how you can get those students involved, whether it be projects and or cleaning, or even seasonal. I mean, I look at some of the seasonal staff that I've had has been tremendous, and all right, you end up hiring them full time eventually down the road if you recruit, retrain, and retain the best you can. Well, all right, eventually sometimes they come back and end up being some of your best workers because they were just a seasonal employee for you 5 years ago.
Well, the reason why people come to work is not money, it's passion, right? It's purpose. Yeah, I've had this conversation this week because of some things that happened with a company in a former life. And, I spent the better part of 17 years sharing hotel rooms and not being paid, what I was probably could have made and all this other stuff. And it was like, well, why'd you do it? I love the people that I work for. I love the people that I get to serve every day, the John Stanglers of the world. Given the opportunity to do it again, would I want to be in the front in the hard, the hardest time of my life and, grinding and doing all stuff? Absolutely. I do it all over again in a heartbeat, and I wouldn't ask for another dollar. And I think that's the piece which you just said, which is the feeder programs of recruiting that schools need to really get better at. You've got these kids for 8 hours a day, 5 times a week. Many of them, it's the best 8 hours of their day. There's no safer place. There's no better food that they get. So recruiting them and showing them all these opportunities, these positions when they're in high school, and going, hey, when you get out, if you don't want to go to college, great. We'll look to hire you. We'll certify you. We'll get you, we'll get you into night school. We'll do whatever we got to do to get you there. But you got them. And then when you get them, you don't need to worry about what's going on, because this is an interesting time in history. Because I always say to people, I'm glad I'm not John Stangler. Not because of John Stangler, but your position, your role, because you have the hardest job in the world when it comes to hiring. Because when you can hire people, when you have money, which this has been a very interesting time where money has been available to schools through ESSER and other avenues. Thank you, COVID. Most of it was for one-time purchases. Some of the stuff was modified so that you could do some hiring of staff, but nothing that was permanent for year after year. But even when you guys have money to hire and staff appropriately, which appropriately is still understaffed, you're competing with private sector, which they're doing very well, and they're paying people more money. I'm seeing people getting paid more money than they've ever gotten in positions and roles in the private sector. So it's very hard. And then when the pendulum swings the other way, you got to cut people. You don't have money to hire people. You don't have money to keep people. So it's very hard. So that you have to have a staff that's passionate and has a purpose other than money. And
I agree. I think you're right on with the purposeful work, but then I also look at, all right, how can you make sure they feel valued and appreciated and recognized?
Yes.
Recognized for all their great work. I mean, I mean, we cannot recognize them enough. I mean, and sometimes it's as simple as a thank you, a thank you letter or a follow-up. Hey, thanks for having, thanks for doing this. It's, designate our mission keepers. We do mission keepers where, hey, you were recognized at the board meeting for doing X, Y, and Z. You were recognized at the admin team meeting for this.
Yep.
And then to go back to the, WASBO Custodial and Maintenance Conferences, we actually created an award. There's so much great work happening in our schools. So we ended up, now we have 4 awards we hand out a year. So we broke up Wisconsin into those 4 sections like we did for the conferences. Now we're recognizing 4 either custodial or maintenance people throughout the state. They're doing great work. So we're recognizing 4 people a year, and then also being able to send them to the Facility Management Conference or the Midwest Facility Masters Conference. So we're able to recognize, more people. And then, I'm actually part of the selection process for picking those, and it is difficult because of all the nominations that come in. There is so many awesome things happening in our schools that we're not even aware of, that don't get highlighted. The mentorship opportunities, the role modeling that these employees are doing is just tremendous. So I look at the more recognition we can provide for them, the more value they're going to, be, they're not going to want to leave you. You treat them well enough. You train them well enough. They want to leave. You treat them well enough. They're not going to want to leave.
Right.
Right.
You know, I mean, really, it's really about that where, you know, we just want them to be recognized and appreciated and, you know, have purposeful work.
Yeah, we just did a training for our architects, Kenny Wirtz and I, and one of the cartoon pictures that we pick up that we put up on the screen, it says, well, what if we train them and they leave? One guy's saying, and the other guy says, well, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
that. What do you do? But they're so, like you say, so underappreciated by a lot that the work is done behind the scenes. The work is done at night. I always say it's like the Wizard of Oz. It's the guy behind the curtain that's moving all the levers to make it happen, and people don't see it. And when they don't see it, I don't think they appreciate it. They just know that when they come to their room, it's clean, and but they don't really see how it gets done. It's just there.
Well, and we've become very, I think the word would be numb to like social media. You know, someone puts something on social media and all of a sudden you get, you know, 100 people that just go, congratulations. Oh, that's great. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, it's digital space. And, you know, and that's why I push, and you're going to hear about it, John, when I come to your school and I talk to the group, is I believe every school district in the country in the facilities department needs to have a wall of fame. And you need to have printed out emails from people that, even if it's something simple. So, you know, I'll give you an example. My mother's a school teacher at a high school, and she sent me an email complimenting the electrician that helped her do about 4 different tasks in her classroom that had nothing to do with electrical work. Right? That sent that right off to the director of facilities. Said, hey, my mother sent this to me about one of your team members. Should put it up on a wall. That's where I kind of came up with this idea. And I just sit there and say, how powerful would that be if somebody walked into a room in your building, your space, and it says Wall of Fame, and on there is printed out emails, certificates, awards of your team, not of you, but of your team. I always say all my awards. You heard me have my my closet light. I had that person that helps me when I'm too lazy to go hit the switch, that I just shout her name and say, I'll turn off lights. If I say her name, she will then do it.
She'll come on.
But my office closet, I have all my awards. The doors are typically closed, and my gratitude wall, which is every person that's ever sent me a thank you card. It's on a big cork board in my closet. And when I'm feeling stinking thinking, or I got to do a checkup from the neck up, I open those doors and I have the light turned on, and I just stare at it and I look and I go, oh, wow, there you go. I did all right. But everything else I have, like the bracelet that I showed you, that was a gift. That stuff's all front and center for me and for people to see and say, hey, where did you get that? Why did you have that? That's what it's all about. So a wall of fame for your team is huge, and it makes a big difference. We've got a first-time commenter. I don't know if it's a first-time guest, but Mr. Scott Johnson from La Crosse says, so true. We had a district near us that had a student with special needs help out during school as a job skills training, and he's still there working and making a very good living. Great stuff. That's good to hear, and good to know that it's happening. We just want to see more of it, I guess. And
yeah,
I've got one to add from La Crosse. I talking to Joe Ledvina from La Crosse at the last conference, and he said, you know, in addition to the awards that WASBO is handing out, we decided we're actually going to award 3 of our own staff every year, and we're going to send them to the next conference as an appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna, you know, as a thank you and an award. And I'm sure Scott's like, hey, don't steal our idea. But it was like too great not to share, because again, it's just another way for us to show our appreciation.
Yep. No, that's good stuff. No, I'll tell you.
Go ahead. I was just going to tell you a story that had nothing to do with custodians, and it just happened in my life. I talked about, you know, how things get done behind the scenes, and you don't realize that they were done. It's like when I was a kid growing up, I just knew that if I took my dirty clothes off and threw them in the hamper in 2 or 3 days, they were washed, they were dried, they were folded, they were put back. I thought it was the magic hamper.
Yeah.
Right? I said that's perfect. So when I got married, I took the hamper with me and it stopped working.
Yes.
It's like, wait a minute, what happened? You know, I had no clue how much work my mom did at home, because she was a stay-at-home mom back then. That's what they did.
Yep.
And the cleaning and the laundry and the meal prep and all that stuff, until you have a home and a family of your own, you don't realize what they've done for you.
Yep.
Growing up.
We all have a skewed visual of what life really is and what it takes to run every day until we get put in that place. I mean, the one of the examples that I talk about that schools should be showing is utility bills.
Yep.
Like, think about your first utility bill that you go and what's a demand charge? Why are there all these numbers? Why is this graph moving in this direction? And why is this happening? And peak, and people don't know. And then they just pay it.
Yeah.
But what would happen if you actually got educated as to what all that stuff means and you didn't just pay it and you actually understood the importance of conservation and peak hours and when to use it and when not to use it, what a rolling blackout might be and why that is. And turning the thermostat a couple of degrees. Like, that stuff isn't taught in school. It's taught when it's not too late, but when you're already in it to have to worry about it. So
yeah,
that's just,
I mean, I've got another, tough love story. You're hitting all the buttons with my personal life. Yeah,
you're welcome.
So my oldest boy bought his first home, and I went in there after he had moved in. I walked through the house and I turned on every light.
Yep.
I turned the faucet on. And I went, he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, that's what you did in my house.
Yep.
You left all the lights on. You left the water running." He said, "No, but that's I said, "That's not different. That's how you're learning now. You got to pay those bills."
Yeah. Well, I live in my parents' house. They're not here with me, but I bought my parents' house when they separated in 2007, and that we're the only owners of this house. It was built in 1991 by my dad, and so. Now I have, my 15-year-old is his space is the bedroom that I grew up in. Yeah. And I sat here not too long ago and he did something and I was like, "Did you close a door or some silly thing?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm my father."
Yeah.
I'm my father. How did this happen all over the place? So Scott Johnson says use it. So that's to you, John. So thank you. And thanks for joining us, Scott. And hope you enjoyed the podcast here today. We've had a lot of fun. We think we covered just about all the bases, other than I'm just looking forward to next week. I'm going to be in Holman, so I'll see you, John. It sounds like you're going to all of them, so I'll see you out there, right?
I'll be at every single one except Holman, but I'm sure Scott will see you in Holman.
Yes. I'll look forward to seeing you in person, Scott, and I'll look forward to seeing you in Pewaukee at the end of the year. Folks that want to go to this event, end of July. Folks that want to go and register, you go to wasbo.com, and that's WASBO.com. And as soon as you hit that home screen, it's right there front and center. You click on the link for the custodial events. And it's pretty straightforward and simple. And I think if you're a company, which I'm a huge advocate of companies supporting associations and groups, because without companies doing this, and the attendees and members know this, without your support, these events can't go on, because this is going to cost way more than $30 a person to put on. So if you're a company, there's a place for you to either reach out to WASBO for sponsorship opportunities, or if there's a registration still open for that, you can do that. Did I miss anything, John, now that I'm looking at the page real quick?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay.
I think you covered it all. I mean, we really value those conferences, and, they're critical for, our people and for vendors going forward. We really need to partner and work together, because we can't do it alone, but we can all do it together.
Yep.
For sure.
100%. Well, this is
Jack, do you have a shout out for us this week?
I got a shout out. I want to say thank you to John first. So John, thank you very much. I put you on the spot here because I wanted to do this. I want to promote it. I want you to hit your target at your attendance and the target for all the others' attendance. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure that people know about it. I learned some stuff that I didn't know about. So
we really appreciate it, John. And even though you got a red Be Awesome shirt, and I don't.
Yeah,
we're red, and our school colors are red and black. So we're the Pirates.
So he's the first person with a Rise Up Red. Well, look at this. I got a hoodie on.
You got a hoodie too.
I've been hiding it because I haven't gotten your hoodie yet. Don't worry, I got you.
You'll probably see us on July 27th, so it's okay.
Yeah, you'll. Well, you know what? I need a Rise Up Red then, I guess, for my visit when I go to Pewaukee. So
there you go.
Maybe I'll send me your school logo. See if I get permission to put it on the back of the shirt. I'll have one made for you with the logo on the back as a thank you for hosting.
Sounds good.
But appreciate you. It's hard getting somebody to come on this podcast one time, let alone twice. So you're a good man. So appreciate you.
Really appreciate
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I love listening to your podcast. So They're always valuable and insightful.
We'll have you back again. Then you'll be the first three-peat. So we'll work on that. But Paul, my story this week, my unsung shout out for this week is actually going to be for a college, but it is a college that supports high school kids. And as Paul, you and I talked about, and John, I told you a little bit, this week I had a very unique opportunity. It's where I got my friendship bracelet that one of the students made. But I had a very interesting opportunity Tuesday night, something I don't do a lot of, which is talk to kids. I have my two, which are hard enough. They I don't watch Stranger Things and a couple other pieces that I was looking for advice from my 15-year-old on how to relate. But this is a camp called the PCCASP camp. PCCASP.org is where you can get some information about them. And they typically have 500 students, grades 7 through 11, come from all over the country. Because of COVID and not being there for two years, massive recurring students. So if they come in the 7th grade, typically they go through 11th grade. This year they had about 300, and 98% of them were first-year students. 7th to 11th grade, going onto the campus of Stonehill College, being away from home for the first time because it's a sleepaway camp, 1 month, staying in dorms. And when I went over Stonehill College on Tuesday, the campus was pristine. It was well kept with safety precautions, added police and everything else to make sure that these kids had a safe, amazing event. And Bruce Boyer, who I've known forever, I've met him first in 2004 at Wentworth. Paul, I think you've met him before as well. He went over to Stonehill a number of years ago, and he and their staff knocked it straight out of the park, as they always do. And I just want to give a shout out to the Stonehill College facility and custodial staff and food services, security and safety, the whole team, because they're trying to do their summer projects just like high schools and school districts are trying to do right now. Yeah. And they got 300 7th to 11th graders that many of them don't know what campus living is like. So giving my old friend and his team a shout out for an awesome job and for making the space amazing for me to get comfortable, because I started out wildly uncomfortable when I talked because I had no idea where it was going to go. And it ended up being one of the most amazing experiences of my career. So that's this week's. I've got a good one for next week. I've already got a doozy. I wasn't this. So next week's was this week's until I went to Stonehill this week and I had the experience that I had and just looked around and was just so in awe of the work that they had done. So, but this has been great. I can't wait to come to Wisconsin. Cheese curds. I've already got my plan scheduled because the Del Bar doesn't open until 4:30 for my drive out to La Crosse and or to Holman. And it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see 400 plus. I predict at your event, John. So appreciate it. Appreciate the added. We're still getting the 5-star ratings and reviews. We're getting more engagement and interaction. Didn't expect a lot today. We got a lot more than we expected from viewers and from comments. We expected this was just going to be a recording because we're coming up against the July 4th. So everybody, please be safe this weekend. I know we're going to want to celebrate and cook out and go to beaches and do all this stuff. Stay the course. Stay patient. Planes are still delayed. Travel still stinks. Gas is still $5 a gallon. Try to just smile and be as patient with one another as you can, because it is a jungle out there right now. And keep the support coming. We love it. And if we're doing a great job, I'm back to taking those comments. Josh@beawesome.com. And anything else, send it to Paul his way. He's an amazing complaint department. So Paul@beawesome.com. And in the meantime, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Thank